Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the GSL English Podcast. My name is Gideon, and this is a podcast for all learners of English to practice and improve in a relaxed and natural way. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've had a good week. Now, in today's episode, we are going to talk about communication, but particularly the way that communication has changed. So I've given this episode the title, The Communication Shift. And I think this is quite an interesting and important topic to talk about, because I'm not talking about the way that communication has changed over the last 50 years, because that's quite obvious, isn't it? I wanted to really hone in on how much communication has changed over the last 5 or 10 years, because when you actually think about it, it's quite remarkable. And there's a reason that we're talking about this today. Okay, so I am a fan of sending the thumbs up emoji on WhatsApp, particularly to my wife or friends. So, I don't know, my wife messages, say, hey, sorry, we would talk in person. I mean, if we're out and about at different places and she's got to message me. If we're at home, of course, we don't message, blah, blah, blah. But if my wife messages me and says, hey, do you want to go around this person's house at night? If I'm busy and I don't have a lot of time to reply, I'll send the thumbs up emoji back. Now, apparently, by doing that, I am showing passive aggression. Okay, so, and this is a true thing, that a lot of people view the thumbs up emoji as passive aggressive. Whereas for me, it might just be my millennial 35-year-old self thinking that that is absolutely fine. I'm agreeing with you. It's cool. Yeah, no problem. And apparently, if somebody sends you a message and you just react to that message with a thumbs up, that could potentially be perceived as a problem, or that you've got an issue, or that you're being a little bit off. And I thought, well, that's crazy. Communication has changed so much in the last 10 years. So just for myself, I did a bit of research into this, and I thought, actually, no, that's a great topic for the podcast, because why are we learning English? Why are we trying to improve our language skills? Well, it all comes back to communication, doesn't it? And if we want to be a good communicator, then we've got to understand what's going on in the communication shift. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We've got a really interesting article to read, loads of fantastic vocabulary, a chance for you to not only practice your listening skills, but, got a chance to repeat after me, shadow read with me. So there's loads of stuff that you're going to get from this episode. So if you are new here, perhaps this is your first episode, or, you're just tinkering with the idea of watching on with this episode, well, I encourage you to do so. But I also encourage you to subscribe. Give this video a like and introduce yourself in the comments. And if you are a returning viewer or listener on whatever platform, then thank you so much for joining me once again on this Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. As I said, I hope you've had a good week. Perhaps you've been fortunate to have some time off this week, and perhaps you've had some time with family. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Hope you had a little bit of time just to relax, to recharge and unwind a little bit. As always, I do encourage you to continue doing that throughout this episode. So grab yourself a cup of tea, get a cup of coffee, get yourself comfortable if you can. No one's judging you. Just relax, unwind, enjoy this episode. As much as I did preparing it, actually. Very good. So here we go. The communication shift. How our attitude to communication has changed in the last 10 years. So, as I said, what I'm going to do is we're going to take it at a really chilled pace. We're not in a rush to go through this. So we're going to take it paragraph by paragraph. We'll look at some of the vocabulary, and I'll explain in my own words what we're talking about or what's going on or what each paragraph means. So here we go. In the past decade, communication has experienced a profound transformation. While technological innovations have played a significant role, the more impactful shift lies in how people understand and experience communication. The expectations surrounding speed, availability, emotional expression, and social meaning have evolved, reshaping both private and public interactions. So we're starting off here by talking about communication experiencing a profound transformation. When we talk about something being profound, it's clear, it's obvious, it's almost life-changing, if you will. Sometimes you have a profound moment in life and it can be deemed life-changing. Well, it's true, isn't it, that communication, the transformation, the change that it has experienced is really life-changing for us all. It's profound. So while technological innovations, ideas, adaptations, they've all played a significant role, the more impactful shift. So when we talk about it being impactful, the one that's really had the greatest impact or mark or change, if you will, in our life lies really in our understanding and our experience of communication. For example, the expectation surrounding speed of communication, availability, emotional expression, social meaning. It is all evolved. It is all adapted. It is all changed. And this has really reshaped the way that we communicate and interact, not only in a private way, but also in a public way. And this is very true when we think about it. For example, when I was younger, if I wanted to communicate with my friends, it was to pick up the phone. Now, pick up the phone, you have a chat, you call. And then when I was about 14, 15, I got a mobile phone, a Nokia 3210. My parents put credits on that phone. And I would have a limited amount of text messages that I could send. But communication was simple, it was direct, it was to the point until you were in person. And that's where you really just let loose with communication. But now, that has massively changed, isn't it? Our expectations of messaging, of communicating has changed. The speed at which we expect people to reply, how we know and are they available when they should be available, the emotion expression that's put across in the way that we message, the form that we message, it's all changed. So the article goes on to say that communication today is faster, more visible, and more emotionally complex than it was 10 years ago. These changes reflect not only new tools, but also shifting social norms and psychological responses to constant connectivity. I completely agree with that. Communication today is faster. It's more visible. And it's interesting here that it says that it's more emotionally complex. If we go back 10, 15 years, communication that wasn't in person wasn't really that complex, was it? There wasn't too much emotion involved around it. But now when you think about the different forms of communication, it is emotionally complex. There's layers to it. There's norms that we have to understand. And when we talk about the idea of social norm, we're talking about social normality, social expectations, what we are expected to do. And isn't that true when we're communicating now? There are social standards, social expectations that we're expected to meet. And this creates a bit of a stress, really, when it comes to constant connectivity. So that's what we're going to dive into. I'm just looking in the camera here, and my beard looks very messy today, so I do apologise. I didn't give it a comb before the episode, and I feel a bit feel a bit dishevelled now, so I apologise for the messy beard. So let's read on. Messaging as the dominant form of interaction. Instant messaging has emerged as the primary mode of communication in everyday life, where phone calls and emails once formed the backbone of personal and professional interactions. Platforms such as WhatsApp, Messenger, and Telegram now mediate much of our daily contact. And it's true, isn't it? This idea of instant messaging has emerged, has come out, has appeared as the primary mode of communication. And that's true, isn't it? Instant message is the primary, the go-to, the first one we use. In the past, it was phone calls, wasn't it? Particularly in a business sense, it was phone calls and emails. And it says that they formed the backbone, the stability, what we would rely on for personal and professional interactions. But now we got WhatsApp, we got Messenger, we got Telegram, we got Instagram, we got Snapchat, we got Facebook. There's so many more layers to how we communicate. Research in digital communication studies indicates that messaging is perceived as less intrusive and more controllable than synchronous forms of interaction. Messages allow recipients to manage timing, attention, and emotional readiness, reinforcing a growing preference for asynchronous communication. This reflects a broader attitudinal shift. Communication is no longer assumed to demand immediate engagement, but is increasingly shaped around personal boundaries and convenience. So it kind of presents the idea here that messaging now in digital communication is less intrusive. So when we talk about something being intrusive, if you think of an intruder into a building or a home, they're intruding on your space, on your time when they shouldn't be there. And now it's kind of this idea that making a phone call is intruding on someone's space almost. So, a message, WhatsApp, an instant message, it is much less intrusive. Messaging, it gives us the option to manage timing, to manage attention, our emotional readiness. And this is really what is kind of expressing this broader, this wider attitudinal shift. Our attitude towards communication has changed past the point of just phone calls and emails. We're no longer assumed to demand immediate engagement. When someone picks up the phone in a phone call, it's immediately answered. When we used to send an email, we expect a reply that day, within the hour sometimes. But now, those boundaries have shifted. When we expect a reply, and the reply that we do expect has changed. It goes on to say that despite the flexibility messaging provides, expectations around responsiveness have intensified. Features such as online status indicators, typing notifications, and activity timestamps have reshaped social norms, subtly encouraging constant availability. True, isn't it? When we think of WhatsApp, for example, think of all of the features that it has. It's not just a case of you send a message and the person replies. We know when someone is online. We know now when somebody is typing. We know when they've read our message or when they haven't read our message. Social norms have changed. And the thing that gets me is what we're going to go on to talk about in a moment is because of that change, there are expectations. And you think, well, I can't read that message because then I've got to reply. That's not healthy, is it? That's not right. So it's interesting that the way I view it is, although we have so much more flexibility in the way that we communicate, actually the boundaries are almost more restrictive and more stressful because there's so many norms and there's so many procedures for communication that we almost have to follow. And it's kind of just promoting this idea that we always have to be available. If we're online on WhatsApp, then we must be available. We must reply to somebody's message. If we've read it, then we've got to reply. How dare you not reply when you've read my message? You know what I mean? It's creating these boundaries that I think are quite restrictive and mentally can be quite damaging. Psychological research suggests that delays in response are now more likely to be interpreted as socially meaningful. Silence, once considered neutral, is frequently perceived as intentional. This has altered attitudes towards time and communication, creating an environment in which responsiveness is closely linked to attentiveness, interest, and social commitment. Yeah, this is what we're saying. It's the idea that now, if we don't reply, it can be perceived as intentional, on purpose, and there's a reason that we have not replied. It's not just based on time. There's an emotional link as to why somebody hasn't replied. So delays in response now, there's meaning to it. And I think we've all done it. You've sent a message to someone. You want a reply. They read it. They don't reply. What do? You go down this rabbit hole of negativity as to why they've not replied. What issues have they got with you? What problem have they got? What did you say wrong? Blah, blah, blah. And that's where the attitude towards communication has almost changed. For example, if someone didn't pick up the phone, unless you'd had a bit of a barney beforehand, a bit of an argument beforehand, they just didn't pick up the phone. If they didn't reply to an email, we wouldn't know. Maybe they missed it. Maybe they didn't get it. But now, with all of the functionality and the flexibility that messaging provides, it creates this emotional connection with communication that really we should always be available. Or why is somebody else not available? So it's almost, I like the way it puts it here, it's almost like a social commitment. And the next part is, I think, where the big issue lies. Read receipts and the social meaning of being seen. The introduction of read receipts, most notably WhatsApp's blue ticks, has had a significant impact on how messages are interpreted. These indicators confirm that a message has been read, while offering no explanation for a lack of response. How do you feel when somebody leaves you on read? So they say, they've left you on read. 2 blue ticks. Well, now that is interpreted as a response in itself, isn't it? The response is that you've read my message and you've chosen not to reply. You've not given a reason. You've not given an explanation for your lack of response. You've just read it and you've not replied. And then we interpret that a certain way. And that really is the shift in the way that we communicate. It's not just about that back and forth. It's about the not replying. Why have you not replied? It's about the intent that we put on the lack of communication. Studies published in social psychology journals have shown that read receipts increase pressure to reply and contribute to heightened communication anxiety. Users report feeling monitored and socially accountable once a message has been marked as read. As a result, communication now involves not only message content, but also the management of perceived responsiveness. Being seen has taken on social significance, transforming delayed replies from neutral pauses into potentially meaningful acts. This is a really interesting paragraph. So those read receipts, or the mark that somebody has read your message, they add pressure to reply, but also this heightened or this raised communication anxiety. So users that have been monitored said that they feel accountable, that once a message has been read, once it's got 2 blue ticks, well, you are accountable, meaning that you have a requirement to reply. So we see now that communication not only involves the content of the message, But also communication is about the perceived responsiveness. So the time in which we reply, is that an indication of how much we care? If we don't reply straight away, is that an indication that we don't care? And that is now all part of communication, isn't it? So it says here that it's transformed delayed replies from neutral pauses into potentially meaningful acts. If somebody wants to, they can intentionally not reply, can't they? They can leave us on red and not reply. Well, that is communicating a message in itself, isn't it? That's saying, perhaps they're trying to say, I'm intentionally not replying to you. I'm ignoring you. So this idea now of this action, it is a communication, it is a way of communicating in itself. I hope this is making sense, but it's interesting, isn't it? That the way that we communicate, the pressure that is put on us now, particularly with WhatsApp and these red receipts, or the idea that a message has been seen, the pressure that is putting on is really creating this communication anxiety. Another defining development of the past decade is the shift towards visual communication. Memes, GIFs, emojis, and short-form video content such as Instagram Reels and TikToks now play a central role in everyday interaction. So now this is where also our communication has shifted from not only our words, but to something else. Memes, pictures with a funny text across it. GIFs or GIFs, often like little snippets from films and things like that. Emojis, Instagram Reels. That when we send those things, it is a way of communication, but we're communicating a message nonetheless, aren't we? Research into digital discourse highlights how memes function as condensed cultural expressions conveying shared attitudes, humour, and social commentary with minimal text. Studies conducted during periods of social stress, including the COVID-19 pandemic, found that memes supported emotional regulation and collective understanding more effectively than extended written communication in many cases. So what it's saying here is that often memes connect people on an emotional level more than written words. And this is kind of true, isn't it? Sometimes somebody sends you a reel or they send you a meme and it hits the nail on the head to how you are feeling. And you think, oh, that person gets me. They understand what I'm going through. Or through a video, a meme, a GIF. Probably more so than somebody saying, I understand how you feel. I understand where you're going from. Sometimes that particular reel, that particular picture, whatever it is, shows that person gets you on an emotional level, whether that is with tough times, good times, whether they shows that they understand your humour. So, even here it talks about this study conducted during periods of social stress, including the COVID-19 pandemic. Memes supported emotional regulation. That is such a shift in communication, isn't it? Goes on to say that similarly, short videos are increasingly used as conversational tools rather than passive media. Sending a reel or clip often serves as an expressive act, communicating identification, humour, or emotional alignment without explicit explanation. It's true, isn't it? Often that reel that you send can be a gateway to start a friendship, a relationship, or a connection. I'll give you an example here. My wife and I, after we had met, we exchanged Instagram information and we started off just sending a few reels to each other. And it was because the reels were on the same kind of line of humour that we both enjoy that we connected. Then we started chatting and the rest is history. But we realised that we had an emotional alignment without words, without explicit explanation. Whether that's right or wrong, whether that's good or bad, it led to one of the greatest things in my life. But it just started off with short form videos. Sending a video to someone else That is communication. And by sending that one video, often it's more than just sending that video, isn't it? It's showing someone, I'm thinking about you. It's showing someone, I understand your humour. Or it's telling them that I think this is similar to the problem you're going through or how you are feeling. It's an expressive act. So the way that we communicate has changed. Whereas before it would be in writing, it would be in phone calls. It's shifted. We don't need explicit explanations now. We often just send reels or videos. Whether that is right or wrong, I don't know. There has to be a balance, doesn't there? Sometimes words are what is needed. We're going to go talk about that in a moment, that a phone call is what's needed. Everything has a time and a place, doesn't it? But we can't deny that there is a time and a place for all forms of communication that we have now. As communication has become more text-based, awareness of tone has intensified. Written messages lack vocal tone, facial expression and body language, increasing the risk of misinterpretation. This is so true, isn't it? You can write a message in a certain way. Someone reads it in a different way and now they think you hate them. You got a problem with them. But that's not what you meant at all. And that's often the issue with WhatsApp, isn't it? So that's why you include emojis. That's why you write it in a certain way, because you do not want that to be misinterpreted. To address this, users employ emojis, punctuation, and visual elements as emotional signals. Linguistic research suggests that cues function as substitutes for non-verbal communication, helping to clarify intent and soften interpersonal exchanges. This reflects a shift towards emotionally cautious communication, where individuals actively manage how their messages may be received rather than focusing solely on information exchange. So this is interesting, isn't it? That we use emojis, punctuation, visual elements to soften the message sometimes. And this helps to clarify intent. So it helps to let the person know what is the reason why we are messaging and what is the purpose of that message. So we're shifting here towards emotionally cautious communication. We're thinking about the emotions of the other person. So now we try to actively manage how messages are going to be received by the other person rather than just on the information in them, which is very often a kindness. And also, I think it largely depends who you are sending the message to, doesn't it? Now, I've got some friends where I can be as blunt as anything, get to the point. Other friends, it needs softening a little bit. Got to pad it out a bit with a bit of love, so to speak. But with the forms of communication that we have now, we're also aware that it's more than just information exchange. It's thinking about how that message is going to be received. The growth of social media has blurred the boundaries between public and private communication. Individuals often communicate within environments where multiple audiences coexist, including friends, family members, colleagues, and strangers. The phenomenon known as context collapse has been widely examined in media and sociological research. It requires users to constantly adapt tone, content, and language to avoid misunderstanding across diverse social groups. As a result, communication has become more curated and strategic, shaped by heightened awareness of visibility and permanence. It's true, isn't it, that social media, or the way that we communicate here, is blurred, or it is, it's not as clear, the boundaries between public and private communication. The way that we communicate now is very often in a public sense, isn't it? Even when we post a story on Instagram, that is a form of communication. So in this sense, says, communication has been more curated. It's more thought about. It's more strategic. And this is because we're more aware of the visibility, the permanence, and the message that we are trying to put across. So it ties it up by saying, in conclusion, over the last 10 years, attitudes towards communication have shifted from immediacy and simplicity to complexity and emotional awareness. Communication is no longer judged solely by what is said, but by how quickly it is delivered, how it is framed emotionally, and how it is interpreted socially. The modern communication landscape is characterized by constant connectivity, visual expression, and heightened sensitivity to tone and timing. Understanding these shifts is essential for making sense of contemporary social interaction and the evolving expectations that govern how we connect with one another. Over the last 10 years, basically it's saying that the way that we have communicated has shifted it's gone so much. It's gone from that point of immediacy and simplicity. It's gone, a phone call, it's immediate, it's simple, and it's over, to being complex and emotional. It's not just about what is said now, is it? It's about everything in between. The emotions, how it was delivered, how it was said, when was it replied to. Although we are constantly connected, we are under so much pressure to communicate in the right way. So it's important that we understand these shifts. It's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving, but understanding the social norms of connection, really, it's important not just towards business, but even language learning, understanding how we communicate using these different forms. It is important, isn't it? Really. But in my opinion, nothing beats picking up the phone and talking to a friend. Nothing beats just sometimes going around and seeing someone. If someone just gives me a call and says, "Hey, Gid, I was thinking about you. How are you doing?" That means so much more than sending me a funny reel or a GIF. Or even if someone says a WhatsApp saying, "Hello, mate, just drove past this place. I don't know, thought of you, just wanted to see how you're doing." I don't know, that means a lot more than everything else. So I think it's interesting, isn't it, that although communication has shifted so much by means of the way that we communicate, the purpose of communication is to connect, and we do that in the best possible way. But we don't want to get lost in thinking that sending a reel, sending a GIF is enough, because it's not, is it? If we really want to know how somebody's doing, we give them a call. And also, I think if somebody leaves us on red, if somebody doesn't reply straight away, give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're busy. Maybe it's okay to open a message and not reply straight away. And also for ourselves, perhaps we can take that pressure off ourselves, thinking that I've always got to reply straight away. If I don't reply, they're not going to like me. If they're a good enough friend, they will. And sometimes an immediate response is not always the best response, is it? So although we have this shift in the way that we are communicating, it is creating this communication anxiety. And I think you've got to be really careful of it. And this all just came to me because of that one emoji, a thumbs up, can be interpreted so many ways. To me, it just means okay. But to others, it could mean that he's got a problem or he's not actually okay with it. Well, that's why, for me, I'm coming from the millennial simple way of just pick up the phone and give someone a phone call. But also it's important to understand how a thumbs up could make someone else feel. And just understand the way that communication is evolving and adapting can help us to build those connections with others. So there you go. That's just my thoughts this week. I wanted to kind of bring that topic up with you. I hope it made sense. I hope you enjoyed it. I've just realized I have not prepared any comprehension questions. So what I encourage you to do is just share your thoughts on the way that communication has changed. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think there's things that we need to be careful of? How do you control that communication anxiety, so to speak? So if you did get to this point of the podcast, I encourage you to write communication in the comments. please give it a like. It really helps me out. And as always, a massive thank you to the members on YouTube. It really helps me out to just keep creating these episodes for you. So thank you so much for watching as always. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Have a good one, guys.